This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Rancher Government Solutions. The Technology Modernization Fund will prioritize full repayment of funds it awards moving forward. The acting administrator of GSA, Stephen Ahikian, says the shift will push agencies to, quote, focus on high-impact, high-return modernization efforts. Gundeep Ahluwalia is Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer at New Axis. He's former Chief Information Officer at the Labor Department. Melvin Brown II is consultant at the Contract Administration Network International. He's former CIO at the Office of Personnel Management. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to see both of you, both TMF veterans. Gundeep, I start with you. To me, the most significant thing about this announcement is that the TMF will continue under this administration. Am I reading that right, or is there something that I missed, Gundeep?
So I'm very excited about that announcement. I think TMF is a construct that comes from the commercial sector. I think it was great. I remember I was one of the first awardees at Labor. We got about $150 million out of it of seed money. And I think the repayment or no repayment, it is a moot point in my mind. I think no repayments actually, and by the way, we repaid most of the money that we got out of efficiencies, right? So it should be driven by efficiency. It should be driven by adoption of commercial technology. It forces the people to rethink their processes. And that's how we have operated. And I continue to operate in the private sector as well. You know, it's incredibly encouraging to get this announcement, and I'm excited about it.
Melvin, what did you see in the executive or in the release from GSA about TMF that jumped out at you?
Well, the thing that really jumped out at me was, one, I agree with Gundeep. I think it's a phenomenal program, and I am glad that they're continuing it. I am concerned about the repayment, though, the full repayment. I don't think that's going to be a one-size-fits-all. For the smaller agencies, they're concerned about their out-year budgets, and with the reduction of out-year budgets, they may think twice about even going to the TMF to get that money for modernization. That was one of the things that we considered at OPM, was we laid out a roadmap for modernization, and then we looked at, what are the funding sources that we're going to be able to use doing that. We used the TMF money for some of our smaller things that we could do, and so that was around Zero Trust, helping us to get that done, opm.gov and getting that done. And then the longer term plan was to use that money for modernization of our mainframe. One of the things that was interesting about the original stand-up of the TMF was we were supposed to be getting rid of the COBOL mainframes, and we all know that just hasn't happened over the last 10 years.
What can the TMF do in the form in which it will proceed? What can it do to accelerate the kind of transformations that you just talked about? Gundeep, you first, but Melvin, I want to know what you think of that too.
Yeah, so I agree with Melvin, but I do think that this forces us to rethink, like, where is the innovation, or where is the saving, right? Or full repayment or not. I think there are a couple of constructs that I wanted to do. The underpinning of adopting commercial technology, the underpinning of shared services and consolidation. At the Department of Labor, when I showed up, there were like a lot of CIOs running around. When I left, I was the only one who was a CIO, right? And I think that's a compliment that I have received from Doge as well, right? Like, they don't have to deal with many people. I think those underpinnings need to become a requirement. And then adding emphasis on velocity. Both the award process at the TMF, I think they have made strides over a period of time. In the beginning, it used to take an inordinate amount of time. Now it has become a lot better, but I expect it to be, why can't this be a Shark Tank? Within 2 days, you get the money and you're off and running, and within 6 weeks, you can implement stuff and show value to the American taxpayer.
Part of that, I imagine, though, is being able to demonstrate a record of being able to get to production in 6 weeks.
That is absolutely true, right? And as the Chief Innovation Officer at New Axis, I'm trying to do that as well, bringing my knowledge from Department of Labor and the way bureaucracy works. But I also think that right now we have a little bit of a tailwind, because bureaucratic processes are under they are under reform, right, and rapid reform, I would say. So we should take this opportunity, right, take the money, take the commercial technology, and bring innovation, put AI to work, which is another thing I did not have 6-8 years ago. Right? I'm very excited. And I think this is a very exciting time.
Melvin, Gundeep used the word velocity, and is money the driver of that velocity? Because TMF had $1 billion and we got a lot of projects out of it. but we don't see the velocity that you just talked about.
Right. So one of the things that I've said, and I continue to say, that IT modernization really is not about the technology. I think it's about modernizing the business of IT and how we deliver that. That seems to be the biggest challenge. The technology has always been there, but our ability to get frameworks in place, to your point, at OPM, we use the Scaled Agile Framework to bring everybody together, to bring the business requirements together, and it led us to some great results. I just read recently that OPM now is going to be all digital on retirement services. Well, that was fed by the roadmap and all of the TMF work that we did to get us there, to get that velocity that you're talking about. But I think we have to take an enterprise approach and look at modernization holistically and look at all of the policies, all of the things, and the budget is key. We have to have a consistent budget stream to fund those types of modernization. If you go back to the MGT Act, if you look at the second part of that, agencies were supposed to establish an IT working capital fund. And you had to go back to Congress to get the transfer authority so that you could do that. Well, CFOs are not on board with these repayments if they can't identify it in the out-year budgets on how the agency is going to actually do that. And so doing the business case and doing the due diligence around how are you going to fund that and pay that back long-term is helpful. Two things are always going to happen in an agency. There's always going to be money at the end of the year. It's just a matter of how much, either through contracts that don't get awarded or we don't staff up 100%. And so that's going to give us some money to put in the fund at the end of the year. But without having a consistent stream of revenue to support your modernization roadmap, it's just going to be difficult for agents to be able to fully repay that back going forward.
Go study DOL. We had a working capital fund, and we had expiring funds authority that I got from Congress, where you can sweep all the end of year funds into the working capital fund and deploy it in building that velocity that I was talking about earlier.
Does all of this impact the way that someone should think about what projects they apply for TMF funds for and which ones they don't, Gundeep?
Right. So I think most of it should be driven by business value, right? What is the most impactful for the American citizen? The first one that we applied for was around the visas, right? Around temp visas, getting people into the country and not having some archaic paper that goes and stapled to the next application that goes to USCIS. Today it shows up like a United boarding pass, right? And shaves off like 2 or 3 weeks out of that entire process, which is so important for fisheries, for landscaping, for different industries in the country. So I think that is the main driver. And then, like Melvin said, technology, innovation, we have more tools today than we've ever had in our history. So tools is not the issue. I think building velocity, breaking down bureaucracy, making a solid plan, and then executing to it with speed. Don't let government processes get in the way either, right? These commercial tools work very well in the private sector. So why can't we adopt them and make sure that we tweak our processes to fit them rather than tweaking the COTS tool and making them custom in the other way?
We have about a minute left, Melvin. Same question to you. Any difference in the way that you would look at projects to apply for TMF funds for versus not?
Yeah, two things. One, I would look at, to Gundeep's point, let's look at the business value. What does this solve? I mean, we want to be able, as we like to say, we want to be able to deliver aspirins to headaches and not vitamins. And so we want to be able to deliver things that are going to solve the problems, that are going to meet the needs of the American people, and it's going to bring us the biggest value for our customers. We want to do that first and foremost.
All right. If you're on the TMF board, what are you looking for as far as projects to fund versus projects that you will decline?
Well, I'm looking at projects that are going to scale. And so one of the things that we have to consider is the scalability of the solution. It can't just be for 2,000 to 3,000 people. Our solutions have to be able to scale multi-generational, and they have to be able to scale millions, 2 to 3 million specifically at OPM. And so those are the types of things I would be looking for. One, the value does it bring, what problem does it solve, and how scalable is that? I think the money is the last point. And the reason I say the money is the last point is because until we decide to make the investment from an enterprise perspective, I don't think we're ever going to see the modernization and the value that we truly could get.
Melvin, Gundeep, it's great to have both of you here. Thanks for joining me today.
Good to be here.